So this is our Tonka Bulldozer RC conversion. It's not done yet, and it still might change a lot, but I figured I'd make a video just to show how we've gotten it to run so far. Because as it sits right now, it runs and drives, moves around. It's not quite how I want it, but it does work. The transmitter I'm using is one of these Hobby King ones. I found this on Amazon, I believe. But I'm going to go ahead and I'll strip it down, take it apart a little bit, and show you how everything is set up underneath. Alright, so I pulled the blade off. And now, when you take off these little rams here for the blade, which that's the next step I'd like to do when I actually get it properly running. I think I want to put an actuator on this somehow so we can lift the blade up and down. I've got an extra channel on here. Oh, and I mentioned this transmitter because I wanted to have one set up where you could operate it like a conventional type of tracked vehicle, where you have the right track on this stick and the left track on this stick. So that's why I got one of these. Alright, so the receiver I have set up underneath. This thing slips off. I'd imagine if you're trying to do this, you already know how these things come apart. But I've got the receiver, if you can see, tucked up underneath of this right here, where the driver sits. So the wires, I have it set up with, it's got two separate batteries, two separate speed controllers, and then this transmitter and receiver. So I have a speed controller and a battery for each track. And then I just have each of them speed controllers wired to channel 2 and 3 on this receiver. So right now I have two 2S LiPo batteries that I put underneath of this here. And then, well, that's bolted on the rear. I gotta unbolt it. I have the, if you look through here, the wires, there's enough space right here in the factory little holes where this slides in and clips in place. Each battery, I have the wires running through this way, one there, and then one on that side, which then go underneath and plug in to the speed controllers. This is an upgraded metal gearbox for one of those hang-long tanks. I think I also found that on Amazon. And I pretty much just used angle iron aluminum. I think it's 3/4 inch. And I built a little box in between the frame. I had to trim some stuff to make it fit, but I'll take it down far enough so you can see all that here in a minute. But the overall setup of the vehicle is both speed controllers attached here. I did these a while back. I don't know if I hot glued them or used double-sided tape or whatever, but both speed controllers here. And then the wires for them go through this. This is a factory hole that was already in it, up to the receiver. And then this hang-long tank kit and each speed controller to each motor for each side. So they're just individually controlled. Right stick, right track, left stick, left track. Each side has its own motor and its own speed controller and battery. But so far it's not done yet. The tracks are a little bit funky. I'll have to take it apart a little further to show you that. I don't have anything special for them to grab onto. They're just original. What I did was I ordered these little couplers, if you can see right there. And then on each outer rear wheel, I drilled, sorry I'm not focused, I drilled 6 holes around the center and ran long bolts through the wheel all the way and into these couplers, which then have a grub screw that attaches to the shaft on the motor. But if I strip it down a little more here, I can show you everything specifically that I had to do here, because we had to cut some stuff away. Alright, so I pulled the bolt off. I had one bolt in one of these right here, just temporarily holding it. I think from factory they have pop rivets or bolts or something there. They were either rusty or they were rivets, and I drilled them out when I bought it. I'm just using a little aftermarket bolt. But this is how the batteries are sitting. So, pull this one out. I guess I don't have to record all the disassembly, but if you're new to these, maybe it'd help. Alright, so with those out, if we lift it up here, this rod, I don't even have the cap on the other end for the front wheels. And this is all original too, it's just the original rod and the front wheels right in there. So if I lay it this way, I'm going to pull this out. And that's how I get the tracks on to begin with, because with that out, the front wheels can be moved back. So I put the track on here, get the wheel up here, pull it forward, get some tension on it. I got them set to where it's just a little tight, and then you can run the rod through. So with these off, you can see a little closer. Now this thing, everything's kind of loose right now. I just gave it a quick trial run basically, and honestly it worked pretty good. Better than I thought it was going to work for the setup, because if you look at it, I don't have anything, the rear wheels of the drive wheels, I don't really have anything for them to grab. It's just the original Tonka track with the wheel here. And I noticed with the drive wheels being on the rear, when you move it forward, it grips real good naturally, just because like the tension on the track. But when I'd reverse, and then technically the front wheels would be pulling it, these were wanting to slip a lot. So I've been thinking I might drill holes around the outer diameter of the wheel, maybe every inch or so, and run long bolts through the wheel like that, so that the little teeth on the rubber track could grab onto those. I know that would eventually probably wear out and break, but I think it'd be better than trying to design metal tracks or do something different. Yeah, look, this isn't, I don't even have this snug down all the way. It came loose when I was just driving it. So let's take this one off too. I'll show you what all I've done to get to this point. Alright, so if I pull this one off, you can see. Alright, so I got a little grub screw right there. I don't know if it's focusing. I got the camera zoomed out here. I'm going to put it back to regular. There we go. Got a little grub screw on this. That moves in there, and it grabs the flat spot on the little shaft right there. So I had to cut, if you compare this to whatever one you're looking at, from this part here, there was a piece that came up and over and attached to this. I had to cut that off. I was going to just have a hole drilled in where the original axle went, and that piece is cut off now, and have these a little closer to each other, and then just that shaft coming through the original hole just drilled out a little wider. But these Henlong tank gearboxes, the way they're designed, they had to be a little further apart, and in order to be further apart, I had to cut that part out. So you can sit back here and see the overhang right there. It's overhanging a little. Hell, they're not even really that even, but still, they had to be wider from each other because the end of each motor was touching the other gearbox, or too close for the wiring to hook up. So I cut that back here and here, and then we got an angle iron piece there. Same deal in the front here. It's just two rails that come up, and then that one cross one in the rear. And instead of putting a crossbar like that in the front part of where they're mounted, I just drilled holes through the body into that angle iron and bolted it like that. So it's sturdy enough up there. Before it was super flimsy when you push side to side like that. It seems a lot more rigid now. But yeah, so it ran pretty good when I took it out just now. The only issue seemed to be that these were slipping in the tracks quite a bit. And these gearboxes are a little too high geared for my liking. I'd like it to be pretty low geared. That way if I do some sort of actuator on the blade, then maybe it'll be able to actually push some dirt around. But I'm not too sure. So either way, besides all that, I mean, I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know if I really missed anything. It's pretty simple, straightforward. The rear part of the fender here, this was going to rub on the drive wheels. So I cut each one halfway through, flared that outward a little bit. As of right now, I have the boxes a little too far forward. I actually cut these off originally. This is the only thing that I really changed from the original design of the Bulldozer, was cutting these back in order to use these so you could access them. I've been thinking about maybe reattaching them with some kind of hinge or something so you could still have the completely original looking Tonka body, but it's moving. And that's kind of my goal too. I want it to look as much like a Tonka as I can. I mean, I guess there's like metal track kits and stuff that would solve slipping problems, but I'd rather use the original plastic rubber tracks if I could. So we'll see how it goes. But so far, this is how I have this thing set up. And honestly, it works pretty good. I mean, if you're not actually pushing dirt around with it or anything, if you just want to see one of these move around, it's pretty neat. It's all bumpy and rough like a real dozer because of the ribs on the tracks, and it moves kind of quick. I mean, if you don't want to push dirt with one, if you just want to drive it, my kids think it's real cool because it actually moved kind of quick. But yeah, if you have any questions about it or if I missed anything, let me know in the comments. Be happy to answer any of them. I'm sure I missed something. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just bolted that gearbox in there. There's one motor for each side, 2 speed controllers, and then that transmitter with a receiver, and 2 2S LiPo batteries. I'm sure you could do it with one battery and set it up through one speed controller and use a regular looking transmitter like one of those up there. But I wanted to have this type. It feels natural to drive a vehicle like this with 2 sticks. So yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know if you got any questions.